Hello, everyone. Welcome to BGI MGI COVID-19 webinar series. And this series, third series, I will tell you more on our high-throughput SARS-CoV-2 detection with custom saliva-based collection protocol. So my name is Sophie Liu. I'm the BD director of MGI Americas, and I'll be opening the webinar with BGI MGI COVID-19 testing solution introduction. And I will turn to Adam Borcherding, our field application scientist, who will show you our high throughput automations right in front of our MGI demo lab. And obviously, it's our great pleasure to invite and introduce CEO and founder Dr. Kashi, as well as CBO Ms. Dena Balbach from Kashi Clinical Labs to present their successful story of using high throughput automation from MGI with their customized saliva collection protocol. So the introduction about BGI Group. BGI Group was founded more than 20 years ago from participating Human Genome Project. And it has known itself as a genomic company, but also a born social responsibilities in the fight of different infectious disease. Um, Such as in 2003, the SARS, the initial SARS pandemic, as well as this SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. BGI stood up the first to this challenge, not only the first one sequence SARS-CoV-2 virus and publish and share the sequence with the science community, but also established the gold standard RT-PCR assay to provide the detection and diagnostic for the community. So BGI and MGI have teamed up in over 200, actually over 100 countries, almost 200 countries and regions to supply detection kits as well as extraction kits, and have deployed over 1,000 instruments around the globe. And as you can see in those pictures of different regions, in some of the regions like United Arab, UAE, France, and Canada, and Australia, BGI, MGI actually provide more than 50% of testing reagents in these regions. And this is a tremendous figure that not many companies can contribute to this pandemic. So RT-PCR test obviously is the gold standard of testing. Because the quantitative numbers directly indicate the viral load in the human body and indicates how infectious the person is. So in the US, BGI has obtained FDA EUA authorization, not only for the RT-PCR test assay, but also extending through the MGI extraction kits, the utilization of high throughput MGI SP960, and the detection assay can be run different commercially available real-time PCR instruments. So the high throughput extraction automation, MGI SP960, can provide about 192 samples per 80 minutes run or less time. And the uniqueness of this instrument is it not only process the extraction protocol, but also it's a truly walk-away system of up to the point of stamping out the RT-PCR plates ready for the the PCR run, the PCR detection. And just last month also, MGI launched this MGI STP 7000 instrument. Uh, and this instrument handles various saliva collection kits as well as swab kits in different tube sizes. And it can process up to 7,000, as the name indicates, 7,000 samples per day from the uncapped tubes transferred to the 96 well sample plate. And also the automation will after the transfer will recap the collection tubes to make sure safety. And also there is an integration of the sample information as well as a barcode into the LIMS system. So a disclaimer is sample processing is currently outside of FDA EUA. So is for actually for many FDA EUA authorized workflow. The sample transfer is not included in the process. And so is the saliva sample type. But the later is validated by Kashi Lab, and BGI is also actively looking to expand the different sample types into the existing FDA EUA. So clinical testing labs are the unsung heroes in this fight with pandemic, and there are a range of critical issues they are facing, from supplies to scalability and infrastructure and readiness of the tests. And obviously, BGI MGI's solutions can help to address all those critical issues. And supplies, the BGI solution provides the one-stop shop and just one supplier with abundant stock in the US. And regarding the scalability, obviously the high throughput automation systems can provide the infrastructure to scale up the capacity. And infrastructure marketing support is actually lacking for most of the clinical small labs, but that's a critical function BGI MGI can provide. And in fact, I will elaborate on this point further because through BGI MGI's network, you will have access to all different players and networks, key advisors, for testing opportunities for private as well as public sectors. And readiness, obviously, with the pandemic urgency, the ready-to-go workflow is it's absolutely critical. And we have our experienced field support team can stack up the FDA workflow, EOA workflow very quickly in your lab. And I have labs, from the first day of installation and training, and the second day they are up and running patient sample. So that's the level of urgency with this workflow we can help to address. And this point is further to elaborate on the supply shortages. American Society of Microbiology put out this survey with 122 clinical labs in the US. As you can see in those numbers, that most of the extraction and master mix and detection testing kits, as well as most critically, the consumables, the plastics, are still in severe shortages. And interestingly, one big company that we are talking to, they claim that they still have shortages and supply issues, not only for the remaining of 2020, but also for the entire year of 2021 regarding extraction kits and automations. And plastics is another critical components. And without every single components in this workflow, this test is just limited. But obviously, with how the pandemic is going and the case number is surging, the demand is going up, we really need all the supplies to be in place. And with the BGI MGI clinical lab partnership, we can obviously provide that layer of security in terms of supplies. And now to secure FDA UA authorized components, reagents, and high throughput automation instrumentation. But also, I want to highlight at this, as I mentioned, at this stage. So, with BGI, MGI is actually a network of players you will have extended access to, such as a key advisor to public sector testing opportunity. So we have consultant actively working to help you submit RFP. And we also have various private sector consultants can funnel in testing opportunities. And me myself personally, I have funneled different opportunities to the clinical labs I'm working with, ranging from RFP and biotech employee coming back to work, and the filming crew. You know, when they go into a new location, they need to make sure their staff safe and throughout the filming, as well as hotel reopening, and you can name it, different scenarios. Um, so in addition to that, BGI MGI obviously provide the sales and marketing resources, such as this webinar and the email campaign. And we are, really behind you as an extended function to help each other to support this community better and to make sure we get through this pandemic sooner. And also, not to mention, with the clinical lab partnership, you can have favorable pricing and enhance customer support, as well as early access to new BGI MGI products. For example, BGI is putting out the flu panel assay, and that is available to the clinical lab partners. So this slide is actually a showcase of data quality we collected from a customer. Actually, a customer collected this data. It's from Sinai Health, and they presented this data at the last webinar. So as you can see, the BGI MGI solution not only giving the lowest level of limit of detection, which matching the number we submitted to FDA, but also the throughput of the instrument, high throughput extraction automation, is actually the highest among all the other players in their lab, including Roche Cobas as well as Luminex Aeris. So that's an excellent showcase scenario to demonstrate the quantity, very high quality data can be achieved, as well as high throughput can be achieved with the BGI MGI solution. And this slide shows BGI MGI has been an integral part of Amazon employee COVID-19 testing solution. And in this picture, you see an Amazon employee is working next to a high throughput extraction automation. And this is the instrument they use to achieve their from thousands of tests per day to ramping up to 50,000 tests per day across 650 sites throughout the country. And this is a level of engagement BGI, MGI can support and happily to support too. So there are a couple of more testimonials, and one private lab in Texas actually texted me saying that I love the fact that working with you not only helps me secure testing supplies, but also introduce access to testing opportunities. And one public health lab in the Bay Area happily expressed their acknowledgement on we make sure the workflow works well in their hands. And the one high throughput lab in LA mentioned that our STP 7000, the sample transfer system, solves the biggest pain point of their COVID-19 workflow. And from the initial order of 2, they quickly expanded to 15 of such units to meet their capacity. And last but not least, I want to set up the stage for Dr. Kashi and Dennis' talk. This particular article came out very recently on The Scientist to compare different COVID-19 diagnostic collection methods from saliva collection tests comparing to swab and different nasal and traditional use as gold standard of swab collection. And obviously saliva collection has its advantage of serving some underserved communities such as remote villages as well as underaged population. And they draw the conclusion that the saliva detection is actually more representative of who is infectious. And that is also echoed, published in New England Journal that Dr. Kashi will talk about more. So without further ado, let me turn to our field application scientist, Adam Borcherding, who will walk you through our 2 high throughput automations, MGI STP 7000, the sample transfer system, as well as the high throughput extraction automation in our demo lab. Thank you.
This is the MGI STP 7000. It's our high throughput sample transfer platform, and it incorporates barcode scanning, decapping, sample transfer into 96 well plates, and recapping for a variety of sample tube sizes, all enclosed in one cabinet that includes UV sterilization and HEPA filtration. The user interface is intuitive and allows a variety of different tube types to be used at one time. Tip definition and sample output information, all in an easy to use interface. Here I'm setting up a run for these 5 mil sample tubes that include swabs. The setup of the samples allows me to pick the tube type and other aspirating parameters. And then select the rack of tubes that has the samples that I want to process right now. The tips, you can set up the tips individually, and including what tips remain in the box if there's a partial box of tips. And you can also set up the output plates, including control locations, and you can fill plates that are not yet filled. Here we go with a start. The robotic arm is responsible for passing the tubes between the racks and the decapping locations and barcode scanning locations. The same location does barcode scanning and decapping, and then returns those samples to the pipetting location, where these conductive tips are able to pipette out of these sample tubes and into the 96 deep well plates. Once the tubes have been processed, they'll be recapped. And returned to the sample racks. Once you have full 96 well plates, those are ready to go on to extraction. This is the MGI SP960. It's a high throughput 96 channel pipetting head with access to 24 deck locations. In the COVID solution, this instrument is configured with 2 magnetic racks, a thermo module, and a plate shaker. We have lots of deck configurations, including for NGS applications, and on-deck thermocycler can be added. The software is easy to use to pick solutions, and it gives the user a full deck layout of how to set up the instrument. This system in the COVID solution can process 192 samples in 80 minutes.
And now we'll hand it over to Dr. Kashi and Dena for their talk on SARS-CoV-2 testing using saliva.
Thank you for the introduction. My name is Dena Balbach. I'm the Chief Business Officer of Kashi Clinical Laboratories. I'd like to take this opportunity first as we begin our presentation to discuss the history of our laboratory. Our laboratory was founded in 2006 by Dr. Zahra Kashi to support transplant centers and the HLA communities. She believed that there was a need then, as there is now, for quality testing to be delivered more rapidly to improve patient care. Our laboratory later expanded to include toxicology and genetic testing. Earlier this year, as the pandemic reached the United States, we expanded to include a biosafety level 2 testing laboratory for SARS-CoV-2, the viruses that causes COVID-19. Dr. Kashi believed that to combat this deadly virus, we must deliver results quickly for isolation and mitigation efforts. Our scientists use their combined decades of experience plus the latest in technology to quickly implement this testing. It was through the support of BGI and MGI that we were able to deliver results within 24 hours and increase our capacity to testing thousands of samples every day. Today, Dr. Kashi and I will both discuss the partnership roles that have contributed by BGI and MGI, our laboratory transformation that enables high throughput and accurate testing, the saliva-based collection method that has been a game changer for surveillance testing, and the expansion of our laboratory capacity through pooled testing. The partnership with BGI MGI has been imperative as we expanded our testing. Early on with this pandemic, we struggled to find a reliable supply chain. For us, it wasn't just about being able to secure a fast batch of supplies. It was finding a partner that was able to offer quality supplies and could continually be sourced as we committed the Kashi branded COVID-19 testing. BGI and MGI offered us the partnership we needed. Superior real-time RT-PCR, which is the gold standard for COVID-19 testing, a continuous supply chain, the total laboratory solution, and the confidence in the science with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration emergency use authorization, along with giving us a fast turnaround time. As with any laboratory, the infrastructure within that laboratory is crucial. Even more so when trying to bring up a test for a deadly virus. Our team had to look at sourcing, scalability, designing the laboratory, along with quickly hiring highly skilled laboratory staff. The sourcing included finding the quality reagents from a committed partner that could deliver consistent supplies. Bringing up a COVID-19 test that could be automated and scalable quickly to meet the increasing demand. Also designing a biosafety laboratory too with a workflow that allowed for a decreased testing time and the ability to add automation. We quickly developed training and onboarding planning for the rapid hiring of qualified laboratory staff to meet the increased testing volume of COVID-19. We had to transform our laboratory that enabled us to have high throughput and accurate testing. And what that meant was from the very beginning, our laboratory was set up to enable this high throughput. We began this process by developing a system from beginning to end that supported these applications. From the ordering of our samples, it is electronic through our web-based portal. Clients enter an electronic requisition at the time these samples are collected, and we pre-label our test kits with barcodes so that when they reach our laboratory, it is at the time it's from the accessioning till the end, it is automated through scanning barcodes. And this allows for a very quick accessioning process. The extracted samples go through an amplification method by using the BGI real-time fluorescent RT-PCR kit to detect the SARS-2019 novel COVID virus. The virus results are analyzed through a fully validated analysis software and then undergo a meticulous review by Dr. Kashi and our scientific team.
Thank you, Dena. Once samples are received at the laboratory, they get accessioned into our LIS. Then they're labeled. Saliva for from each sample is plated into an extraction plate. One sample goes into each well for the single diagnostic testing. For all runs, 2 wells are saved for the negative and positive extraction control. The automated pipettes aid our trained technicians in plating the samples. The RNA extraction plate is then placed into the MGI SP960 machine. The MGI Easy Magnetic Bead Virus RNA extraction kit uses magnetic beads to capture the RNA. Lysis buffer is added to lyse the cells. Proteinase K is added to inactivate any proteins in the saliva samples, which may interfere with the RT-PCR assay. The magnetic beads are then washed with 2 different concentrations of ethanol to eliminate all the extraneous cellular material. The beads are then dried of all ethanol, and RNA is eluted into RNase-free water. The eluted RNA solution is then transferred to a clean plate to be used in RT-PCR assay. Though RNA extraction sounds like a very complex process, once the MGI machine has been set up with the appropriate buffers and sample plate, it requires little to no technician intervention. And additionally, we have found the MGI machine to be very crucial for a very clean, reliable RNA extraction from both saliva and nasopharyngeal samples alike. This is particularly impressive since saliva samples are a more difficult matrix for manual RNA extraction due to the viscous consistency of the sample type. The RNA, the extracted RNA is then plated in a PCR plate containing BGI SARS-CoV-2 reaction mix and BGI SARS-CoV-2 enzyme mix. BGI kits allow for a one-step real-time PCR reaction in such that RNA is first reverse transcribed into cDNA. This DNA is then amplified using a sequence-specific probes with an attached fluorophore. The fluorophore's fluorescent signal is initially quenched by a quencher molecular. The probe is then cleaved by the DNA polymerase in the BGI enzyme mix, separating the quencher and allowing the fluorescent signal to be detected. The sample undergoes 40 cycles of amplification during which the machine is measuring the fluorescent signal. This graph shows what technically the laboratory work is all about. The fluorescent signal is graphed over each PCR cycle. A fluorescent threshold is set at which the fluorescent is considered to be above the background noise. That's what the dotted red line presents. The main value that concerns us is what PCR cycle the fluorescent signal crosses the fluorescent threshold. This point is called the cycle threshold or the CT value. Using BGI real-time fluorescent RT-PCR kit for detecting SARS-CoV-2, a sample is considered positive for SARS-CoV-2 when the CT value is under 37. This means that there were enough initial viral RNA in the sample that a fluorescent signal was detectable in under 37 PCR cycles. The lower the CT value, the less PCR cycles it takes to detect the virus, which means the number of viral RNA copies was higher in the initial samples. The quantity of fluorescent curve is examined, and the CT value is considered in the context of persons' historical COVID-19 test results in order to evaluate whether we believe them to be positive or not. It is important to consider the value in context, as a high value of 35 or so could indicate the end of an asymptomatic case if testing has not previously been performed, or it could indicate the beginning of a case if prior tests have been negative. While swab samples are known to show lingering results even past the time of infectivity, saliva samples often show faster clearance of the virus. And this actually was recently published in New England Journal of Medicine. Doing such careful analysis, our laboratory ensures quality results, and together with the automation provided by MGI, our lab is able to offer accurate results with the quickest turnaround time for RT-PCR COVID-19 tests currently on the market.
Thank you, Dr. Kashi, for that overview. As the virus continued to spread, it became apparent to us that surveillance testing was crucial to many of our clients. We believed that it was imperative to come up with a less invasive means of collection as individuals began to be repeat tested more frequently. Our scientists at Kashi Clinical Labs validated a collection method, a saliva collection method, which allows for our clients to now have a choice to either use the nasal swabs or the saliva method. The saliva collection of samples has been a game changer for surveillance testing in the battle against COVID-19. Our laboratory works with over 200 long-term care facilities that routinely test both their essential workers and their residents. This very vulnerable population requires us to test, to have a 24-hour reporting in order to quickly isolate and stop the spread of this virus within these communities. Along with serving those 200 plus long-term care facilities, we have businesses that we support across the country that do surveillance testing. Much of that testing is based on how that positivity rates are going within that specific community. We also service colleges and universities that want to continue that online in-person learning. That in-person learning versus the online options. We also service production and food packaging plants, and these are those facilities that have a high density population of employees and frequent business travelers as they return to their work locations.
Our saliva testing protocol is streamlined thanks again to the automation, particularly with the MGI SP690 machine. Saliva is collected in tubes filled with a viral transport medium that inactivates the virus while stabilizes both the human RNA and the viral RNA. This RNA is then extracted from cells in the saliva using the MGI SP960. The machine allows an easy extraction from 192 single diagnostic samples or 768 pooled samples every 75 minutes. We then use the BGI real-time fluorescent RT-PCR kit to perform the real-time reverse PCR in order to detect SARS-CoV-2 RNA in samples. The kit uses the detection of human beta-actin as an internal control to ensure that the RNA extraction quality is assessed. The RT-PCR data is then carefully analyzed and considered in the context of patients' historical results, as I mentioned previously. So if all possible, when it's possible, we recognize that not all samples come to us with previously tested or some historical reporting and or some biological data. But regardless, the laboratory does everything to our ability in order to report an accurate COVID-19 status for each individual tested.
Thank you, Dr. Kashi. As Dr. Kashi mentioned, after adding the saliva collection option, the demand for our testing increased dramatically. It was apparent that we needed to scale up our capacity quickly in order to maintain the one-day turnaround time of delivery of results that was so important to our organization. Our laboratory and scientists and operations team quickly validated a pooled batch testing strategy, which created two separate flows now. We continue to have our individual diagnostic testing flow, and we've also added a pooled, which is a batch testing flow. With COVID-19 testing, it's very important that all known exposures or possible exposures continue to use a single diagnostic testing method. And then also, if there's a high positivity rate in a specific population, you want to continue to use that single diagnostic testing. The pooled testing method has allowed us to increase our capacity, decrease our costs, and continue to maintain that specificity and accuracy that our clients have become accustomed to.
Yes, and So it has allowed, we've expanded our daily testing capacity from 500 samples via manual extraction to 2,400 using automated extraction. Again, thanking to MGI SP 960 that has allowed us this. Combined with implementation of pool testing, our laboratory is now proud to offer a maximum testing capacity of 10,000 samples a day. So our pooled testing strategy does not really differ significantly from our single diagnostic testing workflow. The main difference is that instead of putting one sample into one well for RNA extraction, we place 4 samples and combine them into what we call one pool. The samples then go through the same RNA extraction and an RT-PCR assay as all other samples. Upon analysis, any positive pools are noted, and all samples that went into that pool are retested individually to identify which one or more individual sample within the pool caused the positive result. Pooling of samples, as you would appreciate, will cause a shift in CT value to the right of the graph, meaning that it'll take slightly more PCR cycles for the fluorescence signal to pass the fluorescent threshold than the single diagnostic samples. This is due to the dilution of each sample. The FDA's predicted sample shift for pooling 4 samples together is by 2 PCR cycles. For example, a sample with a CT value of 28 run as a single, that is run as a single sample, would be expected to have a CT value of 38 when it's being run in a pooled sample. Based upon our validation studies, we actually observe even a tighter and a slightly lower shift of 1.8 cycle shift when we run pooled saliva samples, which makes us even more confident in the quality of our pooled testing. We take this shift into consideration when, of course, we analyze the pooled sample and before we resolve that out. So now, to date, we have performed over 100,000 COVID testing with an average positivity rate of 1.5% based on 100,000 sample tests. We maintain, we've been still maintaining the next business day turnaround time despite the number of tests that has been added, and yet we are fortunate that despite the increase, the positivity rate has been more or less remaining about 1.5%. The graph here shows the percentage of positive tests that we have reported since, and this is actually depicted from at the end of May. The average positivity rate hovers about 1%, though during August, this got down to under 1%. However, as you can appreciate, based on the current trends, not only in our laboratory, but also in the entire country, again, there is a positivity rate, unfortunately, has begun to raise. So all I want to really share as a note to all of us, all of you who are listening, and all of us in our nation who are pulling this together and trying to combat this devastating situation, is this: to succeed the COVID-19 testing, we had to establish a supply chain with partners that could meet the increasing demand with quality products and services. BGI and MGI have been chosen as our partners since the beginning, and as we have transformed into a semi-automated biosafety tool laboratory, our partnership and relationship with BGI MGI has strengthened and has been essential in expanding our testing capacity to thousands of samples each day. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank BGI and MGI. Without their continuous solid support, our success would have not been accomplished and achieved. Thank you.